morning, everyone. This is Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics. I remain Ugodre Obichuku, and we do this every Monday, 8 to 8:30 on this amazing radio station. If you haven't been following this show for a while, then you have been missing a lot of interesting nuggets that I share here. This show is focused largely on the capital markets and, of course, on the Nigerian economy. So if you're somebody who's interested in investing in the capital markets, whether it's stocks or fixed income, and you want to make some money out of it, but you want to make the money cautiously and responsibly, then this is the show to listen to, because we share all the interesting nuggets that you want to know. And you very well know that this is the era of banking capitalization. So you have a lot of people calling you and telling you to buy this stock or buy that offer or buy this offer or buy that other one, leave this offer. Well, we're here to cut through the chase and just try as much as possible to make things very clear for you so that you can understand what it is that you were getting into. Of course, this is Follow the Money, like I mentioned, and you can always catch previous episodes on any of the podcast platforms that you like listening to podcasts from. Just go to, maybe even go to Spotify. That's the easiest one, isn't it? Just go to Spotify, look for Nairametrics, Follow the Money podcast, and you can always listen to previous episodes, or even this episode, in case there's something I dropped here that I just want to listen to again. You know how radio used to be back in the days when once you heard it, it's gone. But no, the technology is here now, so you can always rewind and listen to it again and again and again. All right, so we've got another interesting show for you, a package, interesting stuff for you today, and I'm going to be having a guest in much later. I'm going to reveal who that person is at some point in the show, and we're going to be discussing a number of very interesting things. You know that as much as this is Follow the Money, and we're trying to show you where the money is, the government is also following the money. In this case, your money. The government is going after your dormant accounts, and they're also going after bank profits. You know, government also knows where the money is, so they're following it in a very strong way, aggressively. And of course, if there's time, we'll discuss the exchange rate depreciation that we saw last week, public offers, and then we close with one stock that gained 40% last week. We're going to discuss all of this, if time permits, on this show with our special guest. But before I dive in, let me just go through capital markets for the week. So it was quite a very topsy-turvy week. At the start of the week, kind of looked like stocks were basically going to fall off, especially after the announcement of that they were going to have this windfall tax on banks. And so we thought that, oh my God, all hell let loose. But looks like investors had a different take to this. The stock market closed slightly higher at 0.87%. And so year to date, the stock market is still up 34.4%, and month to date 0.48%, essentially flat. And we did see the banking index just drop slightly. You know, that's the thing with Nigerian stocks. Don't really react to some of these things, you know, because the drivers are different. And that's why you gotta listen to shows like this, because Nigerian stock market is not like your ordinary stock market. It's not the same with the things that you've known from other countries. Like, a lot of those things don't work here. It just bounces to different rules and different, ideas. So anyway, sentimentally, investors liked, I guess, what they've seen the whole of last week. And we had 37 stocks appreciate and 34 stocks compared to 34 the week before. 34, of course, depreciated last week. So who were the top gainers? Bring out your pen and paper and let's see if your favorite stock is on that list. If your stock is on this list, then you had a very swell week, because the least stock here gained 7.5%. And so it was an amazing week for stocks last week. United Capital was number one. That's the stock I was talking about earlier on my intro. That stock did amazingly well last week. It gained 42%. And there's a strong reason for that. In my daily podcast, which you can also check on Nairametrics.com or Nairametrics podcast on Spotify, I did mention that this stock was gaining. It gained 10% earlier in the week, and I was wondering what was driving this. And then it occurred to me, there was an announcement that they made in June That's why you gotta always listen to the show. There's an announcement that they made in June, and in that announcement, they had said that they were gonna pay their very first dividend, interim dividend. And they did pay that interim dividend, and guess what? They now added bonus shares to it. They're gonna pay bonus 2 for 1. Can't recall the last time I saw a bonus share of 2 for every one you have. That's like giving you double, more than double of what you have, quadruple actually, right? And that's what drove the stock. And so as last week, it hadn't gained that much, but a week alone, it gained 40%. So if you had bought the stock 2 weeks ago, you'd have been up 40%. Imagine if you had put like 10 million in the stock. Up like 4 million a week. What can beat that? Even exchange rate can't beat that. You know that. Anyway, that was the top stock last week. And then still in that family of United Capital, because they all have common owners, Afri-Prudentials also made 33.78%. What is interesting is that, I gotta say this, the family of stocks that are associated with billionaire investor Tony Elumelu seem to have made a lot of money for investors this year. I mean, I think that's one clear thing. They've made a lot of money for investors this year, whether it's Transcorp, whether it's UBA, whether it's United Capital, or whether it's this, they made a lot of money this year. Anyway, so that is just my roundup. So on this CBN Dormant account letter, Dormant account letter, yeah, because it was a letter or circular that we saw. Quite frankly, a lot of countries have found ways to tax windfalls. Windfalls are often taxes, are often profits that are made out of the ordinary, like out of the cost of the ordinary, out of the ordinary cost of the business. Right, so it's usually one-off profits, and it's done by events that just pop out from nowhere. And for example, because of the depreciation of the naira last year, basically because the government or the central bank unified the naira, so we went from official 4 something to over 1,000, and that created massive profits for people who have solid dollar positions without necessarily doing anything. So they did not need to invest in anything at all. And then they make those super profits. But you know, the thing with economics is that as everyone is making a profit, there's somebody else on the other side who is carrying the bag. That's just how capitalism works. There's no such time where everybody is making money at the same time. No. Somebody has got to lose money for somebody to make money. That's how it works. So it's either you lose money in losses or you lose money in spending, right? So either way, that's how it works. So you got to spend or just lose money for someone else to make money. And so a lot of banks and a lot of people, not just banks, I really don't know why they're singling banks alone. Banks, all the companies, people, anybody that's got a very solid dollar position did make a lot of money last year. And so because of that, the government is saying, well, that is a one-time profit. And for that reason, we're going to tax you, a windfall tax. Excuse me. And to an extent, you know, on paper, you would say they've got a point. Yeah, it's a one-time profit. And so one-time profits get taxed, you know, one time as well. But the question then becomes, how many times are you taxing them? Because you've already taxed them 30% of their taxable profit. That is what we know. And so this is uncharted territories, and it's very interesting to see how accountants explain how this is going to work, because it's going to work somewhere. I don't know if they really thought this through very well, because there hasn't been any paper that has come out to support how they're going to do this. They've not provided any detail, but it's really unclear because that profit has been taxed. And let's also remember that the said is realized profit. Now, what that also means is that it's the profit that they've already made. So that FX would have been sold. So you would have made the naira value of that FX. So what is really unclear is, if you've already taxed some of those profits, are you going to go back and retax it? So for example, let's say, you know, someone maybe a bank made a 50 billion from this, you know, whole stuff, realized profit. And the bank has already paid 30% of that, right? So let's say 30% of 50 billion is 15 billion. Now, are you going to go back and say, oh, look, it should have been 50% because that's a new law. So that tax should have been 25 billion, and so you're going to pay me back 10 billion. Is that how they're going to do it? I don't know. And then what happens to tax credit? Are you going to adjust tax credit? Or just a flat tax? Let's remember that we have what is called a capital gains tax law. And the capital gains tax is a tax on assets, right? So if you sell an asset, then you pay 10% capital gains tax. That already exists. So I don't know how they're going to, work this out together. And then, or is this really going to be about the unrealized portion that will eventually be realized? So if that unrealized portion is eventually realized, is it the portion that you're going to tax 50%? So it's a lot of, confusion out there. We're not really clear. But what is clear is that the law has been written already. And if you know how, serious this government is getting things done, it's very obvious that this law is going to get passed by the National Assembly and the president is going to sign it. Except maybe there's a lot of lobby out there and then they decide to just, withdraw this, which I really doubt is going to happen. And one other question as well is that where does it really end? Is it just with the banks? Are they going to, also extend this at some point in the future to other companies, maybe oil companies, because they take in dollar revenues. It's not only banks. But then oil companies will say, well, that's our line of business. We've always earned dollars, so you just can't, it's the same tax anyway. And oil companies are actually taxed higher than any other organization. But what about others? There might be you or some people who, deal in FX business and who just get one-time windfall. I don't know, but it kind of looks like this is just about banks. And it's not only banks that actually had this one-time windfall. There are some other organizations in the financial services sector that also made money from FX, serious money last year. So I'm interested to see how this pans out, and that's why I just saw a paper as well from PwC as well, and it's currently on Nairametrics, and the headline is FG collecting taxes on already reported profit could deter future investment. So it's not a lot of people who are really on the positive side of this. They're a little wary about it. But the government has got to be able to pay its bills, and that's the point here. If you've had a lot of people make money, and from our estimate, I think banks made probably over 3 trillion from all this, from FX. They've got Main Street, which is the manufacturing companies and consumer goods companies. All of them made massive losses. We kind of reported. Remember that big telco company, that yellow one, they made massive losses last year because of this, and those are major taxpayers to the government. So if those guys made losses, it means they're not going to be able to pay tax to the government, and they're not going to be able to pay tax to the government. The government is going to find a way to make up that money. So it sounds a little bit confusing for now, but that's really what it is. And again, we're going to close today with public offers. Still a lot of public offers out there. You've got GT public offer currently running at the moment. We've got Access Bank public offer currently running at the moment. Zenith as well. Going to be running soon, I think, as well. Fidelity has been running for some weeks now. They are currently having a roadshow outside the country. So it's been a flurry of public offers. And we have made our own, comments and made our own picks for public offers. You might want to check Nairametrics for some of that, or check my previous podcast for my own picks. There's still going to be more. I think FCMB is currently on as well, public offers. So you're going to see a lot of public offers. And like I always say, when you're buying public offers, you got to always ask yourself, why am I buying this public offer? Am I in it for the short term? Or am I buying it because my brother said I should buy it, or my sister said I should buy it, or my friend is pressuring me to buy it? Or am I buying it in the long term? Or am I just buying it because I think there's an opportunity to sell higher? Or am I buying it because they're going to pay me dividend? You've got to decide which one is your driver. What you can do is just get into it because everybody's getting into it. You don't want FOMO. You don't want to invest in stocks because of the fear of missing out. Do your due diligence very well. All right, guys, that has been Follow the Money this week, brought to you by Nairametrics. We do this every Monday, 8 to 8:30 on this station, Classic FM 97.3. And if there's any version of this podcast that you missed, you can always go back to any of our podcast channels on Spotify. Just search on Nairametrics, Follow the Money podcast, and you can get it. And of course, several other podcasts that we do for you. At Nairametrics, we follow the money, and that's what we do. Get ahead with us. All we try to do is give you financial information, financial education at the highest level for free. All right, guys, do have a profitable week ahead. Goodbye.